Okay, this video is going to cover motion effects on the basics. And if you'd like to follow along, you'll want to be in lesson 9 and your sequence 01 floating should be available to you. So it has one video clip in it called Gall MPEG 4. And when you're in your timeline, you can play through this and you can see that we're adjusting position, scale, and rotation. And the reason that we can see it so well is because it's really important that your program window is set to fit. So if it's not set to fit, you can come here and change it. If you notice when I move it to 75%, we can no longer see the bird at the beginning of the clip. So you'll actually want to put it on fit if it's not already there. This will allow you to see all of the edges of your actual footage screen. Okay, so all of this motion stuff is controlled in the Effects Controls panel, which is over here on my setup currently. If it's not open, you can always go to Window and open Effects Control if for some reason it was closed on yours. Once this area is highlighted, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you can see a little bit more on this. We're adjusting things in the motion category. If for some reason you can't see all of it, there is a little toggle arrow. You can click this and it will open it up. And there's things you have control over in this clip. So you have position, you have scale, rotation. You also have anti-flicker, which has to do with interlaced footage, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Okay, so position. This here is kind of where your math comes into play. These two numbers, the first one is your x-axis, and this second one is your y-axis. So x will move things left to right, and your y will move stuff up and down. Scale is what it sounds like. That is the size of the clip. So as I move our playhead, you can see that the scale is changing. It's getting bigger, and that's just the adjustment that was put on this clip. So these were already pre-programmed. Normally on all your footage you've looked at before, it's at 100% because you want it to fill the screen properly. But they're using this to animate. Okay, you also see rotation. When we were looking at the clip, the bird turned in, and as we move the playhead, you can see that the rotation's changing. So just like a clock hand goes around, you can adjust your rotation. Positive and negative numbers, it can rotate clockwise or counterclockwise when you animate stuff. So if you accidentally, I've seen this before when you shoot on cell phones and you bring videos in, even though you shot 1920 by 1080, it will come into your timeline vertically instead of horizontally, even though the space is made for it. And this is one way you could adjust it. You could come in and change your rotation so your footage actually filled your whole screen properly. Okay, anti-flicker, and this has to do with interlaced footage, and that's basically if you think of Venetian blinds where you have just row after row and it's one hand meeting the other hand. So one scan line's going one way, the next scan line's going the other way, and that has to do with the interpolation of your export. If you're seeing a lot of like a moiling, which is kind of like the glitter shimmer effect on your footage, you may need to engage this and set it to 1. I believe 1 is kind of the default that they have on it. But that can help when you're doing motion. And it's mostly important when something is fast moving. If you just have two people sitting there very still, this may not be a problem. But if you see a weird flicker, having this engage may give you some help with cleaning that up and making it look nicer. Okay, and then time remapping has a little stopwatch. It looks like it's at 100. I don't see any speed adjustments in this one. That might just be engaged. All right, so we haven't really talked about the stopwatch and these toggle animations on and off. And right now we have points that you can see over here. These ones you can see fairly well, and they have effects applied to them. Our standard point is like these very first ones. Let me see if I can zoom in on this so you can see it. Basically, they're diamond shapes. So they look just like it would here. Since they're all the way to the edge, they're really hard to see. but those are called keyframes. The more that you place, the more control you have over how the animation moves. But usually a start keyframe of what your action or motion you want to do at the beginning, and then one at the end usually is enough, unless you're doing something more complicated. If you notice that these have like a little zigzag in them, if I right click on this, it's got temporal interpolation as Bezier or spatula as auto Bezier. So that is creating why the shape is there. It's putting on some of the effect. So it basically is easing it in or easing it out of the positioning or scale. It basically smooths out your movement. So if you set, scale to start at 20 and jump up to 100, it would kind of slow it at the end to give it a more smooth movement. So that's part of why we're seeing the see-through part, and then this one is a little bit different. It's just the Bezier. And down here you can see the ease in and ease out that you can choose. Okay, the chapter also talked about clearing all this stuff out. So if you put on effects that you don't need, you can also remove them, and you can do one of two things. So if you come up here where you have your toggling animation, if I click this, it will give me a warning, and it says if I continue, all of my keyframes for that specific effect with position will be deleted. If I go ahead, they'll all be gone, and that's okay because I do want to reset everything. But just be mindful that by clicking that as such, they will all disappear. So I'm going to say okay, and you can see the one here and the one here is now gone. However, you can always engage them again by clicking here, and then if I change it to something else, I can add an additional one right here, add or remove keyframe. So this would also, if I just wanted to get rid of one instead of clearing them all, as long as you're highlighted on it, it will take it off again. So different ways that you can clear those. So we'll do it one more time. And as we play through it, you can see positions no longer being affected. We're going to go ahead and clear scale as well, and rotation. Okay, so let me minimize this window, and you can see that our gull is kind of in a funky spot. And that's partly because our scale, when I was at a certain spot, it was at 31.7, so our picture stayed there with a weird position. Wherever your playhead was at the time of when you're clearing it, I think it will maintain those specific numbers. However, these here little reset parameter arrows are great for putting your stuff back. So if you hit reset, and we need to reset rotation, the footage now is back to its original form before any of the motion was applied. So that's a quick insight into effects controls in Adobe Premiere. And you can do this. This really helps if you have still photos you need to add into your footage and give them a little bit of movement. If you scale them up past 100, you then have a little bit more to work with, and you can create slight movement as far as left and right on the x-axis, up and down on the y-axis, or you can use just the scale itself as a type of motion. But adding motion to stuff in videos as you're editing is really important, because when things are static, your viewer kind of gets bored if you do that too many times. So adding the motion looks like it was actually filmed and gives it a little bit more interest.